paper person. I love paper, now more than ever, even after more than 20 years of crafting. More than 20 years. I suddenly feel old. If you're like me and love the look of paper layers on your projects, but struggle to put that look together, you're going to love today's video. Let's make a 12 by 12 scrapbook layout filled with luscious paper layers. I'll show you just how simple it can be. Today I'm creating with stunning supplies from Hip Kit Club. Learn more about them in the description box below, including how you can get 10% off your order. I'm creating with 2 photos today. These are both 3 inches by 4 inches. First things first, I do need to choose a plain cardstock to work with. All of the collections do come with coordinating cardstock, and I've gone with this beautiful shade of blue because it tones in really nicely with my daughter's jeans and this blue floral paper. I'm also going to be working with a striped paper as well as that really pretty shade of mauve. I'm working with lots of paper layers today, and I do want to keep this tutorial very beginner friendly. So we're going to keep things very, very simple. If you're recreating this project, all you need is a large floral print, a coordinating striped print, and then 2 plain cardstocks that coordinate those prints. To add to our paper layers, I'm going to create some border edge strips. I have used a die from Hip Kit Club to do this, but you could also do this with those border punches that you may already have in your stash. That's all the prep we need, so now I can go ahead and start creating those paper layers. Flowers and stripes are like salt and pepper. They always go together, so I'm going to start there with my paper layers. I'm going to use the floral paper at the top of the layout and then layer a strip of the striped paper over the center. From there, we're going to layer in those border papers, something like this. Now that I've mapped this out, I can see that the photos will be too low on the page. So what I'm going to do is cut a strip off of that floral, and then that will lift everything further up towards the top. If you're wondering about the exact measurements for this layout, I'm here to help, and I do have a project sheet linked in the description box below. When placing the border strips, work from top to bottom and just be sure to stagger them so that they're not lined up exactly. I'm going to add some details to this bottom edge of the layout, starting with a strip of scallop washi tape. The very next papers that we're going to add to our layers are these paper die cuts. They are frames and they do come in this collection. It is one of the reasons I highly recommend scrapbooking with a kit, especially if you are a beginner, because you have all of the pieces you need to create a project all in one place. Of course, you could always use supplies from your stash if you get creative. If you like this video, then please like this video and press that subscribe button like a sticker to a scrapbook. I can't wait to spend more time crafting with you. Jumping back in with 2 quick tips for creating with paper layers. The first one is that you need to use less glue than you think. If you want to create a lot of texture, which I do, you don't want to glue down every piece of paper fully. You don't want all of the paper to sit flat against the layer that's underneath it. As an example, for these border strips, I have just applied the glue along that top edge. And what I'm actually going to do is bend up the scallops there a little bit. I want the scallops to be lifted and a little bit fluffy. I love the texture of that. The second general tip I will give you when creating with paper layers is that your paper layers should be best friends. They should all be quite close to each other. You have to be okay with covering things up. I know that sounds maybe obvious, but when I started creating with lots of paper layers, That was actually one of the things I really struggled with. I kind of had to understand that some sacrifices would need to be made for that overall look that I was trying to achieve. The next time you're having trouble with your paper layers, scooch them closer together. Remember, they're best friends and they don't mind, sharing each other's space. Okay, so on to the embellishing, and I do have a plan for that. I have very strategically placed those frames, and now in every position where you see a frame, I am going to build out an embellishment cluster. The frames do create what's called a visual triangle. All that means is that if you were to draw straight lines connecting the frames, you would create a triangle shape, and my photos fit inside that triangle. I'm also going to use these points as placeholders for my title. The main title is Sparkle, and you can see that on the left there. And then I do have a bit of a subtitle, which is the 18, that's down the bottom anchored to that frame. The numbers there, they are not in the kit. Those ones are from Felicity Jane and have been in my stash for years. Things are getting serious because I'm gluing stuff down. When I'm working with lots of paper layers, and for my embellishment layers as well actually, I like to keep my options open. I like to have the option to tighten things up, to smoosh things together, like I described earlier, if I need to. So what I do is I build everything out, I add all my layers together, and then once I'm happy, I then add my glue. And I add my glue not by lifting everything up and having to rebuild it again, but you'll see I just gently lift up some of the edges and pop a little bit of glue underneath. You really don't need very much, just enough to sort of lock things into their position. The other benefit you get from doing it this way is this. I have now decided that I want to add a floral element under those paper layers. If I had glued those all down completely, I wouldn't be able to slide that embellishment in there. It just gives you so much more flexibility and options to change your mind. I'm at the point of the layout where things are really starting to come together, and I'm looking at all of the embellishing that I have so far, and I'm looking to sort of wrap things up. And generally speaking, that means adding in some smaller pieces. I've added in a bunch of die cuts from the paper pack, and it is feeling very papery. And I say that and giggle because of course it does feel papery. It's all made of paper. But at this point, I'm going to want to add in some extra texture, and I'm looking for elements that are on the smaller side. Generally speaking, you'll find these as foam stickers or puffy stickers. I'll also add here too that I generally do not journal on the fronts of my layouts, and that's because I share them very publicly here. So I prefer to keep my journaling hidden. Now, what I do though is I use the sentiments that I find on stickers like this to help tell my story, and I've used a bunch of them here. These photos were taken on my daughter's 18th birthday, which is why I have the number 18 there. But I love these sentiments too. So I've added one that says, having a blast, perfectly imperfect, and this is what life is made of. There's also one here that says, doesn't get more real than this. And I'm sure as a mum, any mum who's had their babies grow up and officially are now adults will fully understand that sentiment. I've got absolutely no idea where the last 18 years have gone, but I am so proud of this young lady. I can't think about it too much because I will get emotional. Thank goodness I have all of these beautiful scrapbook pages that I can look through and
Remember all those beautiful moments. Now, I'm sure you'll agree the page is looking almost finished, but there is just one more check that I need to do. This is my last chance to make sure the page feels very balanced, not just in terms of the elements that I've added, but also the colours of them. I am talking very minor adjustments here, like removing that sticker, but the devil's in those details. Here's a look at the final layout. And of course, I do want to share with you close-up images. Here you can see the stunning paper layers and all of that texture that they create.
Now that you've seen my favourite tips for creating beautiful paper layers on your projects, don't stop there because your pages are only halfway done. Embellishment clusters are where the magic really happens, and I share my best tips and tricks for creating those in this video, so be sure to watch it next. I'll see you all again very soon. Until then, bye!